Welcome, Climate Viewers. This is Jim Lee from ClimateViewer News at ClimateViewer.com. And we're here to talk about them plane farts, them chemtrails, them contrails, and everything in between. A lot of people want to argue about it. A lot of people tell you, it's just a conspiracy theory, Jimbo. Well, they obviously have not done the research. Today we will go over that research, and we will keep it simple, stupid. We're going to make this redneck friendly. And as a redneck from South Carolina, I will gladly say that this is redneck friendly. This series for Dummies is augmented by a series of videos previously made for you technically inclined, want to know more than anything about everything. So in the details, you'll see a link to the PowerPoint presentation that I'm about to give, a previous video where I go into graphic detail about every single technical detail. But for this video, we want to keep it simple. We want people to get the gist of what we're saying, not focus on all the minutia. Okay? So let's go ahead and start with a couple little disclaimers. As a person who has been involved in talking about chemtrails for more than a decade, I can tell you that there are going to be a whole lot of haters out there that some would be like, don't use the C word, Jim. Which is why many people know I'll call them plane farts. Others will be like, but it's depopulation, but it's military, this, it's secret, that. And I acknowledge that, in fact, I'm the only person on the whole fucking planet that has proof that the military is involved in secretly creating clouds. I have the Freedom of Information Act request documents to prove it, which I will show you in this video today. But let's go ahead and just throw this one out there as an acknowledgement before we start the presentation. You can go to ClimateViewer.com and you can look up 5 types of real chemtrails, just the facts: artificial clouds, sounding rockets, biological warfare, human testing, and weather warfare. Now, for anybody looking for secret government programs doing things that you couldn't possibly believe, it's all in here. Trust me, it's in here. From the sounding rockets and the chemtrails, how the CIA is involved, and all of the things you would not believe, and then all of the related articles at the bottom. Dig in. And on Cirrus Clouds Matter, ClimateViewer.com/Cirrus Clouds Matter. This is Chris Fallon, the director of HAARP, affirming what I said about sounding rockets, with apologies to Paul Fox 13. That's Paul Delgado from Fox News 13, who I had a lengthy debate about chemtrails on Twitter with. With apologies to Paul Fox 13, who is doing his best under the circumstances. Here are some pictures of trimethyl aluminum trails from sounding rockets launched at the Poker Flat Research Range north of the University of Alaska Fairbanks. In other words, legitimate chemtrail science. That is the director of HAARP, who I've spoken to many times on the cell phone. And if he says sounding rockets are chemtrails, who you gonna argue with him? Go debunk him. Save it for somebody. Save the drama for your mama or a llama, because I don't give a damn. We're going to talk about the history of chemtrails. We're going to talk with a focus mainly on cloud creation, not on spraying F-oxysporum and Agent Green to kill marijuana crops, which ended up in the cows in Texas, even though it was sprayed in Colombia in South America We're not going to talk about sounding rockets shooting barium and strontium and trimethyl aluminum and lithium and cesium and all that. We're going to specifically talk about commercial aviation versus military aviation creating artificial clouds. That is what this presentation is about. I hope that you guys will enjoy it and find it informative. If you do, please come over to connect.climateviewer.com and check me out on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey. Support my work on Patreon or PayPal. Heads up, nobody's fucking donating anymore. I know it's Christmas time, and I know that the economy's in the gutter. This is an apolitical channel, so I'm gonna just leave it at that. But your PayPal donations would greatly be appreciated right now. It is Christmas time, and my 2 daughters and my wife would greatly appreciate it. And if you're watching this somewhere else, because everything I do is free of charge and open source, come over to the YouTube channel. It's YouTube at ClimateViewer. Just type in ClimateViewer, you'll find the channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, gently smush the like button on this video because I know you're going to love it. And, it helps the channel out, helps spread the word. Because sharing is caring and all of those fun things. And without further ado, we're going to get into this beautiful PowerPoint presentation, which I called CBD. And no, we're not talking about THC. We're talking about carbon black dust, the chemtrail secret for weather warfare, geoengineering, and ozone destruction. The entire video is right here at the top. You can check that out on YouTube. This is the lengthy 45-minute version where I go into all of the details. And today we're going to do the fun. Grab the laser pointer. I got my laser pointer ready. And we're going to pop this thing up and let's get at it. So, carbon black dust and soot, crucial for artificial cirrus cloud creation. Weather warfare. U.S. Air Force and Navy, FOIA documents and presentations. Proof the military is involved. Geoengineering. Carbon black dust and soot is a carrier for metals and sulfur into the stratosphere. Ozone. CBD and soot levitates into the stratosphere. Metals and sulfur destroy ozone. Is released in the exhaust of jet aircraft by burning fuels, soot, or pumped from military aircraft. Carbon black. What are the differences, you might be asking? Reported you for disinformation, bro. Kiss my ass. Report away. Because there's no disinfo here. Everything has references. So, come at me, bro. Come at me, bro. I love you. I love it when a debunker or a sarcastic troll says some shit like that. Makes my day. It's just food. So, differences between carbon black dust and soot. You can read it later because that's too complicated for right now. But I put a chart in here and I put all the different things about what they are. But the purposes are pretty obvious. Carbon black dust. Military uses in weather warfare. Increase cirrus cloud cover. Decrease precipitation. That's right. They can create a drought using carbon black dust. Also used to dissipate fog. Scientific community, weather modification. Soot can be, or carbon black dust and soot for that matter, can be used in hurricane modification to increase or decrease precipitation, make it rain, make it not rain, increase cirrus cloud cover. Cirrus clouds are ice clouds and dissipate fog. Commercial aviation. Now we're talking Delta, American, all of the, flights that you people take, to and fro. Even like FedEx and, UPS. All of those. Commercial aviation. Weather modification and geoengineering. Increase cirrus cloud cover. Did we notice that all three of these have the same thing in common? They increase cirrus cloud cover. That's why the focus of this is on cloud creation. Alter rainfall patterns. decrease precipitation. Same thing. Affects solar radiation. Cools by day, traps heat by night. Period. All the science proves this beyond a fact. Contains metals coated in sulfur dioxide and sulfuric acid. So the soot is loaded with metals. What metals, you may be asking? Well, throw up that beautiful infographic you created for them, Jim, and you can see, things like sodium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, chromium, scandium, titanium, vanadium, all the M's, all of those highlighted in red are metals like aluminum. They are in jet fuel that are in the soot that come out of the back of the planes as nanoparticles and are the number one cloud condensation nuclei or cloud seed that creates cirrus clouds. They're what the water sticks to, people. That's how clouds work. You need three things to make a cloud. You need water vapor, you need some water, you need some dust, and you need some static. And that dust happens to be soot filled with nanoparticles of metal. And the Ulrich Lohmann went and flew up into a whole bunch of chemtrails and plane farts and said 75% of cloud seeds found in cirrus clouds were man-made metals, which came from commercial aviation. The Indian Space Organization found soot from aircraft emissions at 18 kilometers, which means that all of that soot and metal ends up going into the stratosphere, into the ozone layer, affects their monsoons, and destroys ozone. That's why I titled it this way. Soot cloud seeding filled with metals covered in sulfur. Detected metallic compounds were internally mixed with soot particles. The most abundant metals in exhaust were chromium, iron, molybdenum, sodium, calcium, and aluminum. Also detected were vanadium, barium, cobalt, copper, nickel, lead, magnesium, manganese, silicon, titanium, and zirconium. Hi, darling. I'm live on YouTube. Nah, I'm live. Love you, bye. That was the wife. And you cannot plan for these things. So gonna put on the mute button now. It's not making any more noises. Back to the show. Purple rain. Love it. Aircraft engine emissions can act as ice nucleating particles or cloud condensation nuclei or cloud seeds. And this comes from the scientific paper Chemical Characterization of Freshly Emitted Particulate Matter from Aircraft Exhaust Using Single Particle Mass Spectrometry, published 2016, Atmospheric Environment. Dem's references. So yes, all those metals you were worried about, they're in there. And I have multiple references, not just this. Soot is filled with metals in the stratosphere. Soot and metals create cirrus clouds. Soot is coated in sulfuric acid and sulfur dioxide. Acid rain. Acid rain. Soot levitates into the stratosphere through photophoresis. Ooh, there's a big word. That's not redneck friendly. Moving on. Ozone destruction. Oh, and I took this photo right here, right before Hurricane Sandy came through. You like that? Oh, beautiful. Beautiful rainbow cirrus plane fart clouds. So like I said, the Indian Space Organization, it says right here, including the Indian Institute of Science and the ISRO Vikram Sarabhi Space Center, say they have now evidence of such particles existing up to 18 kilometers in the stratosphere, and that the soot and metals they're talking about that came from planes, that there are about 10,000 of them in every cubic centimeter. 10,000 particles per cubic centimeter. Given the shape and location of these particles, they argue it could only derive from emissions from aviation fuel. And because of chemical reactions, it can deplete the ozone layer. From possible climatic implications of high altitude black carbon emissions, that's right, black carbon and soot, the words are interchangeable. Very much so. Carbon black dust, black carbon soot. You will see these words used multiple different times. David Keith, the geoengineer, said engineered nanoparticles could explode photophoretic forces, enabling more control over particle distribution and lifetime than is possible with sulfates, perhaps allowing climate engineering to be accomplished with fewer side effects. From David Keith's 2000 paper, Photophoretic Levitation of Engineered Aerosols for Geoengineering. So basically, David Keith, geoengineer, in 2010 said, hey, maybe we could use photophoresis, or the ability for sunlight to heat certain particles and cause them to rise, to put geoengineering chemicals into the stratosphere. And then in 2017, the Indian Space Organization found that soot and black carbon from jet aircraft emissions were doing exactly that they were floating up from the troposphere, where we live near the ground, into the stratosphere found at 18 kilometers. If you need a little visual for that, look right here, look no further. 12 kilometers is the tropopause. That is where the boundary layer between the troposphere and the stratosphere is. So the plane farts migrated from 39,000 feet up to the 18 kilometer mark. So that's 6 kilometers into the stratosphere, around the same area as the ozone layer. Don't you love a good infographic? Round of applause for my beautiful infographics. Why does this matter? Harmful ultraviolet radiation would kill all plant life on the planet. What would happen if we lose our ozone layer? UVB causes non-melanoma skin cancer, and development of cataracts. Exposure to solar UVB radiation will kill marine life. UVB radiation could affect terrestrial and aquatic biogeochemical cycles. That's a hell of a word. That's not redneck friendly. It's going to screw up everything on the planet. Okay? Everything going to die. Everything going to die. But Harry Wexler warned us about this. In fact, James Roger Fleming found this, what he called Rosetta Stone, this hidden piece gem of information, that Wexler was concerned that inadvertent damage to the ozone layer might occur if increased rocket exhaust polluted the stratosphere. And he said this back in 1961. Harry Wexler tried to warn the world. He said, climate control can best be classified as interesting hypothetical exercises until the consequences of tampering with large-scale atmospheric events can be assessed in advance. Most such schemes have been advanced, would require colossal engineering feats and contain the inherent risk of irremediable harm to our planet or side effects counterbalancing the possible short-term benefits. In other words, if we go poking holes in the sky with rockets and polluting the stratosphere with a whole bunch of metals and, all of the chemicals that are coming out of planes, that we could end up destroying the ozone layer, which could end up screwing up the entire planet's weather. And that would be a very bad thing. However, when referring to rockets doing a whole lot of damage, he suddenly had a heart attack before he was able to give this speech. And wait for it, the Rand Corporation, W.W. Kellogg, from the Rand Corporation, Santa Monica, California, in 1964 said, maybe we should launch a whole bunch of sounding rockets and that would be a great idea, which is what I talked about at the beginning of this video. Basically, sounding rockets, chemtrails from space, they're all happening at the same time. So inadvertent means accidental or non-intentional, purposeful. Inadvertent, increased pollution from rocket exhaust near space experiments could go awry. Unknown risk from Operation Argus, Project Westford, Project Highwater. All these are documented on weathermodificationhistory.com if you want to read about any of these projects. A nuclear explosion dumping needles in space and dumping water to interrupt aurora, basically. And then in 1934, Chapman proposed making a temporary hole in the ozone layer for the benefit of astronomers, because, people looking through, telescopes would like to be able to see deep into space. And maybe we could just make a hole in the ozone layer and that would help them out. Stupid. Possible military interest in waging geophysical warfare by attacking the ozone layer over a rival nation. The possibility that the military could literally just temporarily say China or Russia, that the United States military could go and say, well, let's just open the whole damn ozone layer up over China and just fry all the people. What do you think about that idea? Makes you go, But I did a whole series on this called Chemtrails from Space, Sounding Rockets, Satellite Chemical Releases, and Ionospheric Heaters, which is a thing for another day. But that's Harry Wexler, and this is a newspaper article. Scientist warns space-age fuels may affect world's life by changing weather. And that's why we're focusing on that today. That yes, jet fuel is the focus. It is clearly the focus. And I have that same infographic I showed you earlier with a couple slight modifications showing sounding rocket, a satellite dumping chemicals in space. But what the Indian organization was talking about, that soot carries the metals up into the stratosphere. This is how the geoengineering from commercial aviation, inadvertent, accidental, not on purpose or not, it's happening. We all see it. So instead of focusing on intent, which is what most people in the chemtrail world want to do, they want to find that sheet of paper that Dr. Evil went, let's spray chemicals from all of the planes and geoengineer the planet. They want to find that sheet of paper. Instead of focusing on the sheet of paper or finding the ill intent, the proof that somebody intentionally did this, focus on what you know, what you can prove, and then prove it in a court of law. Prove it to your congressperson. Prove it to somebody so that it matters. That's the point of all of this. And all the proof is there. And these are all of the ionospheric heaters and microwaves and lasers that work with all the chemicals, but we're going to move along. You can find those on climateviewer.org right now if you want to actually look at all those, because there's a lot. Artificial cloud creation history. So those who are not new to the channel, this is remedial, but we'll just do it for the hell of it, because some people tend to think that chemtrails happens to be a new thing. Jet trails, dim sun, Palm Springs gripes. 1958, December 6, 1958, Spokane Daily Chronicle. And they basically say that the contrails are not disappearing, but are breaking down into a haze and creating a cloud-like appearance in the sky. With the unlimited expanse of barren, uninhabited land in the west, does such activity have to be centered over a resort area which is offering the visitors cloudless skies and unlimited sunshine? The Air Force so far is flabbergasted. 1958. They are so flabbergasted. Last one, S. Thank you so much for the super chat. I greatly appreciate it. You are loved, and I appreciate it. So the Air Force, they say the Air Force is flabbergasted. They figures its jets could not blot out the sun for a short time. But then less than a year later, this is December, January 31st, 1959. We're talking less than a month later. The city of Palm Springs meets with the United States Air Force, and the Air Force gives Village two choices: live with the trails or move the entire city. Let's face it, men, said a crisp talking star-studded general, you'll either have to live with the vapor trails or move the city of Palm Springs. The resort area, it appears, is known as the Palm Springs intersection, the freeway interchange of all West Coast aerial traffic. So the city and the civic leaders, in an apparent unanimous unspoken agreement, decided that a peaceful coexistence with the Air Force was the wisest course. And you can read these newspaper articles in full on weathermodificationhistory.com/newspapers until they all get rolled into ClimateViewer.com together. Losman Laswan, I think that might be how you pronounce it. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. But this is the proof in the pudding that since the dawn of aviation, since they started flying, planes were making clouds that blanketed the sky and blocked out the sun in 1958. You cannot argue with this. These are the facts. So, chemtrails in 1958, as referred to by the newspaper and the crisp talking star-studded general, they were called vapor trails. Vapor trails. Interesting. What else have they called them over the last century? Well, in 1958 September, which is just a couple months before the article about Palm Springs, wouldn't you know, there was Dr. Florence Van Straten. Navy scientist creates clouds, breaks them up using carbon black dust. So Dr. Florence Van Straten said, we dropped carbon black suspended in a liquid over a track a mile long and produced a solid line of clouds 1 mile long. Dr. Van Straten told a reporter. When we dropped 1.5 pound dry packages of carbon black, we produced single clouds with each drop. The Navy team seeded 7 clouds with carbon and dissipated each of them from 2.5 to 20 minutes. Each cloud turned gray and then rapidly disappeared, Dr. Van Straten said. Aside from the cost of the airplanes, we spent less than $5 on the experiments in Georgia. So let's reiterate. Navy creation destroys clouds. Ordinary carbon black is used. 2 different newspapers, both 1958, September. December, Palm Springs is pissed off because their whole sky is covered in clouds. And the military says, hey, you better just get used to that shit because it's going to keep happening. So, this is an original Associated Press photograph of Dr. Florence Van Straten, sent to me by my good buddy, Dominic Marama, co-creator of all of these beautiful newspaper articles on weathermodificationhistory.com. But this is the lady who came up with the ability to create clouds and destroy them at will using carbon black dust for the United States military in 1958, the same year that Palm Springs was pissed off. Wait for it. There is way more. We have just scratched the surface. Because in 1961, John F. Kennedy said, we shall propose further cooperative efforts between all nations in weather prediction and eventually weather control. And Lyndon Johnson says, speaking of satellites, it lays the predicate and foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer. Now that word determine, you mean like just know or actually control? To determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather. And he who controls the weather will control the world. He also said, from space, the masters of infinity would have the power to control the Earth's weather, to cause drought and flood, to change the tides and raise the levels of the sea, to divert the Gulf Stream and change temperate climates to frigid. This was then Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson before JFK took a hot one to the head, and then he became master of the universe and became president and did weather warfare over Vietnam. So in 1970, 2 states sued over black belch and what they called smoke pollution of the skies. Chemtrails 1970. Smoke pollution of the skies. The government will tell the nation's 43 commercial airlines Tuesday they must end pollution of the skies with jet engine smoke by 1972 or face punitive legislation from Congress. We all know that never happened. So yeah, they got a warning. You guys better cut it out, making all them damn plane farts and blocking out the sun with your plane farts. But even though 2 states, Illinois and New Jersey, sued the airline industry, nothing ever happened. Nothing changed. We know this because it's still going on today. In 1970, there was a paper published called On the Possibility of Weather Modification by Aircraft Contrails. And what it basically says is, it's likely that contrails are affecting precipitation to a much greater extent than our present deliberate seeding operations. That contrails are affecting rain more than deliberate cloud seeding operations. 1970, Wallace B. McCrae. And he would be correct. In 1974, William Gray et al. 1976 paper, Weather Modification by Carbon Dust Absorption of Solar Energy. He said that we should use carbon aerosol particles to steer hurricanes. And then goes on to show a diagram of a plane and how the burner section, turbine, afterburner, carbon make section of the engine, and the nozzle out the back, how they could put a whole bunch of carbon black dust into a hurricane and then steer it. 1976. And then, there's that whole acid rain thing. A high-flying theory on the acid rain problem. Maybe it's the damn jets. The jet's exhaust is already up there, and all he has to change in the atmospheric conditions to precipitate out as acid rain. Exhaust spewed out by the jet airplanes is sulfuric acid, sulfur dioxide comes down as acid rain. This is a no-brainer. So, weather warfare, 1994. This is a redacted, like hell, paper released from a Freedom of Information Act request. I got this from the Black Vault. And in it, it has a certain page that says previous Russian weather modification efforts. The entire top of the page is redacted, and this one line is available in the middle of the page. This demonstrated an ability to generate infrared defeating clouds, effectively denying overhead surveillance. And then the whole entire bottom of the page is redacted. The point of this, generate infrared defeating clouds. Why would they want to generate infrared defeating clouds? Maybe it's because of infrared satellite photography. Maybe it's because U-2 and SR-71 spy planes that use infrared to see the heat signatures of vehicles moving on the ground. So if you could defeat infrared cameras spying from planes and satellites, then you could create clouds that mask military movements underneath. This is from Spacecast 2020, Volume 2, and this is as real as it gets. Then we have a Freedom of Information Act request from the United States Air Force Phillips Laboratory Geophysics Directorate entitled Weather Modification Using Carbon Black. What kind of carbon black? That kind of carbon black, the kind Florence Van Straten came up with in 1958. Kind of important to remember these things. So this is from 1994. Weather modification using carbon black from the U.S. Air Force Phillips Lab. And they say to achieve precipitation enhancement, to create cirrus clouds, and to dissipate fog and low clouds. Demonstrated the ability to dissipate fog and low stratus over airfields, employed precipitation enhancement techniques to muddy the Ho Chi Minh Trail, reducing the flow of supplies in northern Vietnam, aka Operation Popeye, aka weather warfare over Vietnam, which led to the Environmental Modification Convention, the weather warfare ban of 1978, which is why I have proposed the NMOD Accountability Act. ClimateViewer.com/NMOD. Just saying. Dane gave me up for adoption. What the hell is going on? What in the hell is going on in my chat? You guys, so trolly. So trolly. Oh, Lord. And a whole lot of other things. But the point of this is U.S. Air Force using carbon black to create cirrus clouds. Right there in the Freedom of Information Act request. Cannot argue with this. Then you got the United States Navy FOIA as well, same year. And they say, hey, we should get good at weather modification again, even though it was banned in 1978. Even though, and by the way, these are the cold cloud modification system bombs that were developed by the U.S. Navy China Lake Weapons Branch for use in Vietnam's Operation Popeye, right here. And if you think they have stopped creating things like this, you're crazy as hell. You're crazy. Successful completion of the proposed effort and follow-on ENMD programs will give the United States a viable state-of-the-art weather modification capability again. I know of no countermeasures. Yeah, there's no way to stop us. In Weather as a Force Multiplier, owning the weather in 2025, whole lot going on here, but this figure illustrates the system's development timing and sequence necessary to realize weather modification capability for the battle space by 2025. And if you look right here, it says CBD, carbon black dust. It says 2005. By 2005, this is the same year as Hurricane Katrina. And down here it says CBD equals carbon black dust. Oh, there's a little star right there. What does the star mean? Star means technologies to be developed by the Department of Defense. Wait, I thought the Department of Defense already developed carbon black dust back in 1958. So is it a conspiracy theory that it's in owning the weather in 2025? Saying that the United States military should learn how to create carbon black dust for weather warfare? When Dr. Florence Van Straten, 1958, she already did it. She did it for $5. Oh, yeah. What is there to be developed? Just go read her paper. Doesn't even make sense. Doesn't really, but it was in there. New sub. All right. Okay. So, as we mentioned earlier, there was a Freedom of Information Act request from where? The Phillips Laboratory. And it just so happens that after owning the weather in 2025, Dr. Arnold A. Barnes Jr., spoke at the Test Technology Symposium 1997, and he basically addressed weather modification to a joint United States Army and Air Force meeting. And what did he say? Use of carbon black to retarget precipitation, fog dissipation, and cirrus enhancement. Cirrus clouds, there's that word again. Ice cloud. Ooh, cirrus clouds matter. They matter a lot. Cloud seeding. These are from his PowerPoint presentation. The original files are available on weathermodificationhistory.com. Link at the bottom down here. U.S. military discusses future of weather warfare despite NMOD ban. It's on ClimateViewer.com. It's on weathermodificationhistory.com. It's the only place on the internet you're going to find it because it was deleted from the Army's military website. I recovered it and brought these back to light. Cloud seeding, weather modification using carbon black for all the reasons that they talk about in Owning the Weather in 2025. Increase rain, decrease rain, all that. Increase cirrus cloud cover to deny visual satellite or high altitude reconnaissance. Exactly what I just told you. Decrease light level for nighttime operations. So this is the United States military, Dr. Arnold A. Barnes Jr., admitting out of his own mouth that an airborne carbon black delivery system is possible and that they want to deny visual satellite or high altitude reconnaissance to create chemtrails, aka contrails, persistent contrails, contrail-induced cirrus, plane farts, cirrus clouds. The military, the United States Air Force, Dr. Arnold J. Barnes says, we want to make clouds to block out the ability for satellites and spy planes to spy on us. Forget anything else you want to know. It's right there in writing from a source you can prove. End of conspiracy. All the facts are already in this document. If you want to know and you really want to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt to somebody, I am very serious, Patricia. I am so serious that I'm seriously considering just ending this stream and just dropping the damn mic. Be like, boop, just drop the damn thing. Because, I mean, what else is there to tell you? Oh, there's more. There's more, he says. Let's find out. Shit, I haven't read this in a while. The NATO single fuel concept. How about the fact that everybody doesn't know this, but the word chemtrail came about in 1997. The very first article that was ever put on the internet was in 1997, and that article was about JP8 jet fuel. And it said that there was a noticeable increase in cloud creation in 1997. This also jives with what I've been able to gather from thousands of people over the last decade, that I too was a Boy Scout. I remember blue skies. I remember white puffy clouds. It wasn't really that bad, at least where I live. I didn't live in Palm Springs this whole freaking time. So why is it now so much worse? And you look at the timeline and what you see is some creepy shit called the NATO single fuel concept. NATO wanted to go from gasoline to kerosene in all of its planes. Why? Because it wanted one fuel for the battlefield. And the idea was pretty simple, that it costs a lot of money to put fuel in military vehicles. And if they could put the same fuel in a Humvee, Jeep, and a tank and a plane, then they'd only have to buy one type of fuel for all the things. And that would drive the cost down. So between that and the fact that Vietnamese, Viet Cong were able to shoot their AK-47s at RF-4 Phantom, planes, and the bullets would pierce the wings and the whole damn thing would explode because gas has a lower flash point. And people refueling planes, just a little spark would jump over to from the nozzle. You've all seen it at the gas pump. Please turn off your engine and all that because of static and all that sort of stuff. The same thing theoretically could happen to you. Doesn't happen very often, but it happened way more often with planes. So they did two things. They said, well, let's put a static dissipator directly in the fuel, which was Denza or dinonaphthyl sulfonic acid. Dinonaphthyl, Denza, DINNSA, which is basically like a barium salt. In addition to all the other barium things, so there's a whole lot of going on here. We're going to keep it real redneck today. But in this timeline, it goes like this. DuPont Status 450, the Denza, was created in 1962. Jet fuel additive number 5, JFA5, in 1970. 1988, conversion from JP4 gasoline to JP8 kerosene begins. So in 1998, they started switching from gasoline to kerosene. 1992, stratospheric Welsbag seating patent came out. Maybe just a coincidence. 1994, plus 100 additive tests begin. This is a HITS additive, high thermal stability additive. It's a triple cocktail of trade secret ingredients added to the fuel so that they could fly those spy planes using JP8. Instead of having to use a very expensive fuel that doesn't freeze at altitude, they just came up with a whole bunch of chemicals to add to it. It's called a HITS additive or a plus 100 additive. And they started that in 1994. Owning the Weather in 2025 came out in 1995. Conversion to JP8 was complete by 1996. 1997, Arnold Barnes gives his speech at the Weather Modification Test Technology Symposium saying, hey, we can use carbon black dust to create cirrus clouds on demand. And August 1997, Edward Teller's geoengineering proposal happened. Whole lot of details on ClimateViewer.com about that. Look up Dr. Evil will save us from global warming. October 97, 1 plus 100 additive in 1,000 United States Air Force jets. And then by 1997, a year after the NATO single fuel concept was complete and they switched from gasoline to kerosene, the first time the word chemtrail was ever uttered on the internet. Isn't it interesting what you could do with a little infographic? You just put all the dots, connecting the dots. That's what we're all supposed to be do. They just to be clear, they do spray Sumter, but just not as much. And interestingly enough, just within the last 2 months, I started a job as a security guard in my neighboring county of Clarendon. And I'm going to start taking photos because what I've never seen in Sumter, I see every freaking day in Clarendon, in Manning. So the chemtrails in Manning, which is literally 20 minutes from where I'm at, are freaking insane. And I do not see them in Sumter County in South Carolina, where I live. We're talking a 20-minute difference every day. All out assault on the sky in 20 minutes from my house. But where I live at, I live downwind from an Air Force base, Shaw Air Force Base as well. I barely ever see them. I might see 1Z, 2Z, 5Z, 10Z, but very rare and not often. However, 20 minutes away, whole sky blanketed, stripes everywhere. I'll take photos. So it all depends on where you live, where the highways in the sky are. These are just facts. I would not have known had I not, I knew this already, but I would not have seen it so apparent in South Carolina had I not taken this job literally 20 minutes away from my house. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Back to the point. NATO is in 30 plus countries. So if you're asking yourself, how could this become a worldwide phenomenon in 1997, simultaneously worldwide, just having, chemtrail, plane fart, cirrus cloud, white skies everywhere at the same time? It's because, in my opinion, when NATO made this change, the amount of soot, carbon black dust, and the metals from that kerosene doubled, tripled, and sometimes 10 times the amount of calcium, as an example, in JP8 versus JP4. Charts and all that on my website to prove it. I mean, I could show you. Don't want to get too distracted. Oh, I'm going to show you because it's in the next slide. How about that? Gotcha, bitch. Gotcha, bitch. So over here, JP5, 2,100 parts per billion of aluminum. JP8, 9,300 parts per billion. JP5, 5,200 parts per billion of calcium. 31,000 parts per billion of calcium in JP8. All of these, this is straight from the military. I gave you a different sample earlier, but when I say that all of these metals are in the jet fuel and being burned and are contained in the soot that comes out and makes the clouds, that's because I've checked multiple references, including straight from the military's mouth. Hillbilly, they ain't even no damn hills around here. I live in the Piedmont. What y'all talking about in there? I'm a hill fucking belly. I love it. Keep them coming, guys. You guys so nice to me. I love you. Love you. So over here, this is legitimate chemtrail science 101. They say that what should have happened was N2 plus O2, that's like air, nitrogen, and oxygen, mixed with the fuel up here, should have ideal combustion, creating CO2, H2O, that's carbon dioxide, water, N2O2, and SO2, sulfur dioxide. But what really had happened was you get all of this. So CO2, H2O, N2O2, NOx, 8 hydrochloric acid, plus carbon monoxide, plus C soot, as they put it, plus SOX, so sulfur dioxide, trioxide, all of those sorts of things. The whole point of this freaking slide is that if you look over here on the end, it says direct emissions, C soot, and then it says what happens, microphysics and chemical reactions. What does that lead to? Clouds. Change in radiatively active substances, cloud creation, climate response, CR clouds, climate change, some math involved here, impacts, agriculture and forestry, ecosystem, energy production and consumption, social effects. Social effects, you mean like all us talking about chemtrails on the internet and speculating on what the hell is going on up there and going, look up, man, and what the hell is that? And oh my God, it looks like a fucking murder scene in my sky. That's what they mean by social effects. You gotta love it. Just 2 words, bam. Which equals damages, welfare loss, e.g. monetary units. That we end up losing money as a result of all this to boot. And this isn't even figuring in health effects, human health effects, like the fact that carbon black dust can permeate the womb of a pregnant woman, and they've found carbon black dust inside the placenta, blood-brain barrier, all that kind of stuff. But maybe you didn't believe me before when I told you they talked about it in 1976. In 2008, at the Hurricane Modification Workshop with the Department of Homeland Security, Dr. Mosh Alamaro said, Collaborative research on hurricane modification by carbon black dispersion methods, risk mitigation, and risk communication. Dr. Mosh Alamaro, MIT University. This presentation focused on the use of carbon black aerosol. There's another word for you, CBA, not CBD. Carbon black aerosol. To selectively heat parts of the atmosphere by dispersion of carbon black aerosol above a hurricane. What would that look like? Well, I found this great infographic over here of a C-130 military plane, coincidentally. Fleet of transport aircraft flying at 50,000 feet drop soot in the path. Oh, wait, carbon black aerosol. Over here, they call it soot. Soot, carbon black aerosol, carbon black dust, black carbon. They just use these words interchangeably. They all mean the same damn thing. When you go and you have a campfire and you put a bunch of wood in there, and then afterwards there's all this black stuff in there, that's soot. Go pick up a burnt piece of wood, rub your finger across it, and guess what you're going to have? You have soot on your finger. That's what we're talking about here. That's what they're talking about here. And that shit is filled with metals because it comes from planes burning fuels that are filled with metals. That's what we're talking about here. Carbon black does. Over here it says, fleet of aircraft, 50,000 feet, drop soot into targeted areas of hurricane. Soot is warmed by the sun. Why? Because it's black. Heating the cool air around it at the very top of the hurricane. This reduces the flow of air within the hurricane and slows it down. Modified storm track, actual storm track. So they want to change the direction on it. Depending on where and when soot is dropped, the now weakened hurricane will change course using carbon black dust, carbon black aerosol, soot. How about that shit? Contrail control. Well, as a result of 9/11, watch previous video. It's on my YouTube channel. So I'm on all of my things. You can go and check them out. BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube. As a result of 9/11/2001, we learned that the diurnal temperature range changed dramatically, and that in skies normally crosshatched with condensation trails, the only contrails seen in this image from September 12th, 2001 were left by the plane returning President George W. Bush to Washington from Nebraska and several escort fighters. So we're probably seeing this is Air Force One and some F-16s, F-15s, military planes. They're the only streaks in the sky. The rest, there ain't a cloud in the damn sky. And as a result, Patrick Menace from the Langley Research Center at NASA, posted this, and David Travis wrote a paper called Regional Variations in U.S. Diurnal Temperature Range from the 11 to 14 September 2001 aircraft groundings, Evidence of Jet Contrail Influence on Climate. Basically saying, hey, because clouds are not here right now, because there's nobody flying, because we banned all the flights, there's not a barrier keeping the heat at the ground, and that these clouds are trapping heat. So it got colder at night, and it got colder at night than it normally would have, because normally at night clouds would trap the heat. I'll take it easy. Love you, mean it. And then we move on. It happened again in 2009 with the volcanic eruptions around Iceland, and they grounded all the flights again. And it said a single aircraft operating conditions favorable for persistent contrail formation appears to exert a contrail-induced radiative forcing some 5,000 times greater than the recent estimates of the average persistent contrail radiative forcing from the entire. All right, so what this means is that one cloud This one cloud created by E3 AWACS, which is a radar military plane, okay? Doing circles. You see the circles right there. That this one cloud created by a plane, because of all the ash and smoke that was already in the air, created a climate effect greater than all of the contrails sent from the entire civil aviation fleet, from what they thought it was actually going to be. That spreading contrails may be causing more climate warming today than all the carbon dioxide emitted by aircraft since the start of aviation. So the question is it CO2 or is it clouds that have a greater effect on warming the climate? People are actually starting to look at this, starting to talk about it. That's a big concern now. Atmospheric science, seeing through the contrails. Nature and Climate Change 2011, published, peer-reviewed by Olivier Boucher, one of the heads of the IPCC. Letters I normally don't like talking about. But as a result of all of the shenanigans, jet biofuel enlisted for contrail control. Contrails might be the punchline in cultures these days, thanks to the imaginative folks who've rechristened them chemtrails and embroidered them with elaborate theories involving government and corporate misdeed. But contrails are pretty serious business for a less conspiratorial reason. Scientists believe these ice clouds generated by water exhaust gases from aircraft engines could have a real impact on the climate, perhaps cooling temperatures during the day and warming them at night. So, NASA, the FAA, the Germans, DLR, all of the above are now using biofuels and contrail avoidance to try to change the climate temperature. It's getting pretty crazy. And these biofuels are coming out are pretty insane. If you want to know why Bill Gates is buying up farmland everywhere, they're planning on growing jet fuel. Okay. One of them is called the Jatropha plant. Jatropha biodiesel, a fuel derived from the crushed seeds of the Jatropha plant, water, and a surfactant, then blended in different proportions with aluminum nanoparticles for performance. Because putting aluminum nanoparticles in biofuels, in jets, creates a stronger performing plane. But they warn nanoparticles should be used judiciously because they tend to entrain into human bodies. Nanoparticles bad. But hey, if they get more dollars to the gallon, they'll be pretty stoked about it. That's why me and a couple of my friends went up to the United States Environmental Protection Agency and had to a hearing on pollution from aviation. So in 1970, the state of Illinois and New Jersey sued the airline industry over smoke pollution of the sky, over literally chemtrails, plane farts, contrail induced cirrus clouds. And since then, nothing happened until 2015 when a bunch of guys got together, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, on behalf of the Obama administration because of the Paris Climate Agreement, COP21, the Paris Accord. They wanted to regulate CO2, nitrous oxide, and other greenhouse gases coming out of airplanes. And they were trying to use the Clean Air Act in order to do so. So I took it upon myself to get some of my friends together and go up to Washington, D.C. and give them hell. And in that, I gave them a great speech and a nice tongue lashing. But as a result, I went with it, me, Max Bliss right here, Patrick Roddy right here, Michael Saraceno, a guy I met on Twitter, and Amanda Bays, aka Madison Star Moon. We all went up with different stories to tell. Mine was about clouds and nanoparticles, and I gave all the science talk that you heard so far in this presentation. And God bless him. Max Bliss literally dropped New World Order right there in the building on C-SPAN. So it was a hell of a show. You should watch it sometime. Go to climateviewer.com/EPA if you want to watch the hearing. I play it occasionally on the channel. But what happened as a result? Well, everybody was busy fighting over whether Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton should become president. So in August 15th, 2015, we had the hearing. July 25th, 2016, this is the 2016 election. Breaking EPA to limit greenhouse gases from airplanes. So they were like, yeah, we appreciate you, Jim, and the guy who said the thing about the New World Order, but we're going to talk about greenhouse gases, okay? But then, less than a week later, July 25th to now July 31st, 2016, White House releases Federal Alternative Jet Fuel Research and Development Strategy, biofuels, alternative jet fuel, as they like to call it. September 3rd, 2016, getting pretty close to election day, isn't it? Everybody's distracted, aren't they? China, United States, and Europe pledged support for Global Aviation Emissions Pact. September 12th, 2016. They got all this in before the election, like all from July to October, while everybody's distracted about Orange Man Bad or lock her up. That's what the whole world was doing. Orange Man Bad, lock her up. Orange Man Bad, lock her up. And they managed to pull all this shit off while we were all distracted. So China, US, and Europe pledged support for Global Aviation Emissions Pact. September 12th, Greens moved to dismiss EPA lawsuit over airplanes emissions. So the people who originally brought the lawsuit forward said, well, now we've got the Federal Alternative Jet Fuel Research and Development Strategy put out by the White House and Obama Incorporated. So, biofuels for contrail control. That thing you were just talking about, Jim, this biofuels for enlisted for contrail control. It happened. And then, Obama's like, oh shit, this isn't really going the way we expected. How about, because we're globalists and we fly everywhere and we can't fly to these climate agreements if we end up limiting greenhouse gases from airplanes because it's going to cost so damn much to fly, we won't be able to. So how about we just come up with biofuels for planes and us globalists can get our technocrat on and it won't be such a problem. Greens moved to dismiss EPA lawsuit over airplane emissions. And I warned them, I was like, hey, this biofuel thing you're planning on doing in my speech is dumb, is bad. After the election, then October 10th, 2017, non-governmental organizations slam United Nations Aviation Agency plan for biofuels. I fucking told you. I warned you. You motherfuckers don't listen to nothing. I warned you. I warned you about this. This is why we had the Dust Bowl in America, dog. Is because people, they're stupid. History repeats itself. We grew too much. We chopped down too many trees and we had a Dust Bowl. That was real ass climate change in the 1930s. And then we planted 220 million trees to fix it. Now they're on about, CO2 and greenhouse gases and oh my God, it's going to be the end of the world. But then their solution is to grow biofuels. When we have food shortages, let's grow gasoline. What's that going to lead to? Dust Bowl 2.0. Mark my words. So yeah, I went up there and I said, why is the EPA claiming that 6 greenhouse gases emitted from jet planes are a threat to human health under the Clean Air Act while doing nothing to address ongoing lawsuits over leaded aviation gasoline or the real health concerns of stakeholders, that's you people, worldwide? Cancer-causing heavy metals in fuels and their additives and aviation-induced cloudiness. Drop the mic. Oh, they locked the mic in place. I couldn't drop it. But that was like my opening statement. And then I really ripped into their ass after that. I'm looking, but so much younger there. Damn, he's sexy. I would do me. And artificial clouds, they're not limited to just airplanes. There's also ships, but interestingly enough, they're like now saying it out in the open that airplane contrails may be creating accidental geoengineering. This is from the Smithsonian Institute. MIT Technology Review. We're about to kill a massive accidental experiment in reducing global warming. Talking about ship tracks making clouds over the entire Pacific Ocean. They don't want them to ban bunker fuel. They want them to keep on using heavy fuel oil in international shipping. Why? Because it makes sulfuric acid laden marine stratocumulus clouds. Bruh. You can't make this shit up. So it's out in the open now, but they still want to call it accidental geoengineering. It's just an accident. It's a happy little cloud, happy little accident. So what is geoengineering? Geoengineering is the idea of creating, artificial volcanoes in the sky. As deployed in the, pictured in this picture here with dope jet fuel, deployment by plane, running on dirty, high sulfur fuel at cruising altitudes. Airplanes could add plenty of sulfur dioxide to the stratosphere. They're already doing that. I look younger and healthier now. Thank you so much, Mary. You are so damn sweet. Bless your heart. Well, the truth of the matter is, at the time that I went to the EPA in 2015, I had Graves' disease. And if you go back into my videos on YouTube, especially, and you'll see me go from looking somewhat healthy to Skeletor, to somewhat healthy to bag of bones. And I no longer have Graves' disease because I got my thyroid removed. And now I actually have muscles again. And my face is full again. And it feels wonderful feeling healthy again. But thank you for noticing. I do, me too. So yeah, that's the idea. And I got all of these quotes on, using jet fuel to geoengineer from all these different people. All of this is available at ClimateViewer.com/SeriousCloudsMatter. If you want to read about all of the different scientists talking about all the different reasons why they would use jet fuel, addition of sulfur to the jet fuel, release through the aerosol system, release the aerosol through the exhaust system of the plane, injection of sulfuric acid, a condensable vapor from an aircraft, inject sulfate aerosols emitted by aviation fuel, applying high fuel sulfur content at aviation cruise altitude. It's in the jet fuel, bruh. It's sulfur and the fuel and the metals. That's what they're all looking to do. That's what they say. Use commuter aircraft fuels doped with aerosol generators, wide area seating with soot or carbonaceous aerosols, carbon black dust, or like calcium. Like I said, all the things. And they're doing the biofuels for contrail control with the Access program and a couple of other ones. There's been the Access flights, alternative fuel on effects on contrails and cruise emissions, Access 1 and 2. And then the NASA DLR multidisciplinary airborne experiments, ND Max, and emissions and climate impacts on alternative fuel, ECLIF 2. All these are about contrail control, about controlling the clouds. You can read all about this. These are the experiments going on right now by the NASA, FAA, and Germany's DLR. DLR is Germany's NASA, if you're wondering. They are working on this in every way, shape, form they can, because guess what? There are no electric freaking planes. They're going to continue to use jet fuel, and jet fuel makes clouds. So they're now, figuring anything they can to do to try to screw with the fact that the carbon black dust and soot coming out of planes is trapping heat on the ground. And that's what they call Earth radiation management, not solar radiation management. During the day, solar radiation management occurs. During the nighttime, they want to do Earth radiation management because, as Dr. Rangasai Halthori from the FAA Aviation Climate Change Research Initiative said, we would like to have more contrail-induced cirrus clouds during the day and none during the night. We want more clouds during the day, none at night. Federal Aviation Administration, Dr. Rangasai Halthori. Dr. Ulrich Schumann from the DLR. Less warming and more cooling contrails, predictable for operational planning. He said that to the International Civil Aviation Organization's colloquium on, geoengineering solar. I just accidentally clicked. Everything in the PowerPoint has links. So if you click, it's going to happen. Geoengineering solar radiation management, SRM versus ERM, cirrus cloud thinning is what they call it. Cirrus cloud thinning. And in that, and I actually have that slide right here. If the time and place of seeding is selected with care, the climate effect of cirrus thinning can be enhanced. For that, only the long wave warming effect of cirrus clouds should be targeted, and their solar effect should be avoided. Let me translate that to redneck. You see here, we don't want to stop the sunlight. We don't want to stop the clouds from reflecting sunlight back to space, but we definitely don't want that same cloud to trap the heat near the ground, you see. So we need to thin them bitches out. You hear me? This can be achieved if seeding is limited to high latitude winters or nighttime seeding. This is from a paper titled A Cirrus Cloud Climate Dial by Ulrich Lohmann and Blas Gasparini in 2017. They're basically admitting everything that I said, at the hearing, that the clouds are the problem. They want to use biofuels to control them. If they can't control them, they want to melt them away at night or somehow avoid creating them at night, but keep making them during the day. So your days are going to get more cloudy. The nighttime, you're going to see stars. Pretty interesting. Pretty damn interesting. More on dope jet fuel. Yeah. Stratospheric sulfate injection with commercial aircraft. Sulfur content of the fuel should be increased by about 50 times what it currently has to have a cooling effect. This is Ulrich Schumann's COSIP, Contrail Cirrus Simulation and Prediction Tool. Part of all of the flight routing software they have to control where all of the, the clouds show up. This is where Ulrich Schumann said less warming, more cooling contrails. Here's a bunch of patents on using two different jet fuels in one system, controlling the supply of a vehicle with multiple fuels. One, a biofuel, which is low sulfur, and another, a doped with sulfur system. Fuel delivery system, two jet fuels, one tank, contrail control. Fuel system for vapor trail control. Those are the patent numbers. Go look it up. These are facts. Cirrus cloud thinning, how does it work? Well, they suggest using like bismuth triiodide seeding via commercial airlines themselves. That basically they need to melt these clouds away. If cirrus thinning works, it should be preferred over methods that target changes in solar radiation, such as stratospheric aerosol injection, because cirrus thinning would counteract greenhouse gas warming more directly. So solutions. And this is anybody on YouTube that talks about anything that's conspiracy related. Obviously, the word chemtrail has a connotation. Got to be conspiracy related. No, as you can clearly see, we talked about nothing but facts here today. We talked about cirrus clouds. For me, they are synonyms. That means they are words that mean the same damn thing. Chemtrail, contrail, contrail-induced cirrus, aviation-induced cloudiness, artificial clouds, or as we like to call it in redneck land, me and my daughter, we always calls them, hey, Dad, you see them plane farts? And I'm like, yeah, baby, I see them plane farts. What can you do about it, though? So don't deal with conspiratards ruining a great discussion, because I think that the airline industry and the military count on that. They live for that. They live for us arguing. And just like with Orange Man Bad, lock her up. Orange Man Bad, lock her up. They managed to pull off the biofuel control program all during the last couple months of that election because nobody was paying attention. Not like you could do anything about it anyway, but they got it all wrapped up because Obama was about to get his ass kicked out of office and they saw the writing on the wall. So they wrapped it up, tied a bow on it, and everything has been in place since then. Nothing has changed. So I would say that if you're watching a video that has a conspiracy related, connotation, you should expect somebody to give you a solution. If they don't give you a solution, they are only selling you fear porn. And these presentations and what I do is certainly not about fear porn. It's about fear that causes you to act, not to demoralize you into believing there's nothing you can do, because there are things you can do. And I want you to let's talk about those right now. How to deal with the problem with secret weather modification. Commercial. Don't fly. Fuck them. Take a car ride. Ride a train. Hell, trains are bad for the environment too, but guess what? You do not have to support the Skynet. Chat. I'm just playing off your words. Don't support the Skynet. Tell the airline industry you're #grounded. You're grounded. You've been behaving badly for multiple decades. You've been sued twice. Once by 2 states, once by a bunch of NGOs, and nobody's ever held you to account. So, as a result, I will not fly. Do not support them. Do not buy their tickets. Screw them until they admit what they're doing in public and figure it out. Demand that the International Civil Aviation Organization, the Federal Aviation Administration, NASA, and the German DLR pursue options to stop creating cirrus clouds. Not more clouds by day, none by night. Unacceptable. Fuck straight off. Scientific. Support the Environmental Modification Accountability Act. Demand transparency, a worldwide requirement to give prior notification before experimenting in the sky. Build a sensor network to detect illegal weather modification and geoengineering activity. Military. Support the Environmental Modification Accountability Act. Give the weather warfare ban of 1978 teeth. Build a sensor network to detect illegal weather warfare activity. Pursue a complete ban on space weather modification, ionospheric heaters, rockets. So, solution, don't fly commercially. Tell them to fuck off and go read about the Environmental Modification Accountability Act. Give me your suggestions to make it better and help me make it a reality, because I believe it is the best solution. I have spent over a decade trying to come up with a real ass solution, and this is the only one I can come up with. And yes, it starts with the United Nations, because guess what? They have a weather warfare ban on the books. But what good is that ban if there's no way to catch anybody ever doing it? Even when Dr. Arnold Barnes is sitting there saying, hey, I know that the military is not supposed to be doing weather modification, but fuck it. We should make clouds anyway. We have to be able to hold these people to account. The only way to do it is to catch them. The only way to catch them is to actually start somewhere. So I say we start with the weather warfare ban, the Environmental Modification Convention of 1978, and give it teeth. And then we expand on that to make it nationally a United States federal law, then state by state. And we all build our own sensor network. If you read the PowerPoint presentation I have on the Environmental Modification Accountability Act, you'll see that I put a lot of thought into this one. I explain all the pros and cons, and I hope to God that it happens in my lifetime, because I don't want my kids to grow up in a world where they have full control over the freaking weather. That would be horrible. So all of these things are available today. Ionospheric heaters, sounding rockets, satellites, lasers, cloud seeding, cloud ionizers, geoengineering, ship tracks, contrail-induced cirrus, and water vapor pollution. Shout out to Weather War 10101. I heard everybody talking about them in chat. Water vapor pollution, also a thing. But these are all weather modification technologies available today. I've updated that graphic. It looks like this now. Weather modification technologies. Anyway, so support the Environmental Modification Accountability Act, and never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. You are that small group of dedicated individuals, and I greatly appreciate everybody who took the time to make it all the way to the end of this video. I hope that you will also share this video. It's very important to spread the message. Go look at the original PowerPoint presentation. You can download it at the bottom of weathermodificationhistory.com. I actually also turned the PowerPoint file into a PDF, so you can download the PDF of the entire slideshow that I just showed you, and you can email it to anybody, anytime, anywhere. Everything that is available on any of my websites, any of my video channels, is Creative Commons, non-commercial. You can go and you can download it, you can re-upload it, you can email it, you can burn it to CDs, DVDs. The point is to spread awareness, and I appreciate each and every one of you is taking the time to be a part of this experience and learn the information. It is now your job to teach somebody else. In fact, if you could take on a challenge, teach 10 people. If each of you that is in the able to hear my voice teaches 10 people this material, this will be over with really quickly. And we can cut through the cloud of bullshit that surrounds the term chemtrail. And we can get to the serious problems that we have. I hope that you guys have found this informative, because with information comes power, and with power comes great responsibility. So please use this information to attack ideas, not people. And just a quick reminder, it is Christmas time, and I would greatly appreciate anybody who hits up my PayPal. And my kids and my wife, thank you very much. We put into work all year long, and we're going to continue this For Dummies series. I've gotten some extremely good responses from people via email. Thank you so much for reaching out and saying thank you. Always trying to find new ways. Maybe in the future we'll even chop portions of this up and make shorts out of it. But I think the next one on the For Dummies is either going to be Water Wars, or I think the next one's going to be Water Wars. Technocracy and Water Wars. Water Wars for Dummies. Catch you next Sunday. Love you, mean it. If video resonates with you, leave me a comment, because I love hearing from y'all. First time here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell. Yeah! Remember, it would be impossible for me to do this without your support, so please join my Patreon or buy me a coffee on PayPal. And always, attack ideas, not people.